Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got an interesting show for you here today. Definitely may shed a little bit of light on this Lamar Jackson situation in Baltimore with the Ravens. But before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube, you know what you got to do. Go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you can be made aware and stay up to date on whenever we drop new content. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, go ahead, open up your audio only podcast platform, type in the Format Podcast in the search bar, do a little search, we come up, you subscribe, do it just like that. If you enjoy the content, please go ahead, make sure you give us that 5-star review. Share the podcast with other people who you know want to hear that good sports talk and not always the same thing that everyone else is saying. And make sure you leave us a comment here on YouTube or on your audio podcast platform. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. Please, please, please make sure you like and subscribe and make sure you tell others to like and subscribe. Definitely trying to continue to build the channel. All right. Okay. So let's get right to it. Arguably the biggest story, probably along with Aaron Rodgers and his future with the New York Jets and Green Bay Packers in the NFL this past offseason has been what? Lamar Jackson and his contract holdout with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, there are definitely differing sides to this issue. And I guess it kind of boils down to not just looking at the thing objectively and taking in all the information, because of course we're missing some of the information, but as it does in most times, it boils down to X versus Y or A versus B or however you want to see it. It's basically, are you pro Lamar and pro player, or are you pro Ravens and pro organization? But for me, it's really not that simple. So what happened last year before the season started? The Cleveland Browns did something absolutely insane in terms of NFL contracts and gave Deshaun Watson the largest fully guaranteed contract in the history of the league. 5 years, $230 million fully guaranteed. A lot of other owners really went nuts at that because they know what that's going to do. That's going to open the door for more people to want that fully guaranteed contract. And football, from an organizational side and a business side, it's not the sport to do that because players get injured so often with the physicality of the game. Now, on the flip side, for the player side, of course, the player is going to want, and more often than not, a fully guaranteed deal to secure themselves and their money, again, because the game is so physical. But it's really kind of come to a head this past offseason, or this offseason here, because Lamar Jackson, former MVP, 2019 MVP Lamar Jackson, undisputed MVP, that is, quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, who, let me add, the Baltimore Ravens could have signed 2 years ago and avoided all of this, now is reportedly interested in having a deal that has fully guaranteed money more than what Deshaun Watson has received. So it has to be, in his estimation, well, from what's being reported, he wants more than $230 million fully guaranteed. And Steve Bisciotti and the Baltimore Ravens have been clear from the beginning that they're just not doing that. Now, they have, if reports are correct, offered him a deal that has 3 years fully guaranteed at $133 million, which, as I've said before in previous episodes on this channel, makes it the second most fully guaranteed money in the history of the league, but that's still roughly $100 million off from where Lamar wants to be. Now you have the other added issue of Lamar Jackson not having an agent, and so him having issues with negotiating his deal. Now we do know that other players have negotiated deals without an agent, but it's almost never a quarterback trying to reset the market. So now you got the issue of, is Deshaun Watson's deal, is that the actual new market? Is that an outlier? How does this work? You have the issue of Lamar Jackson, as I just said, doesn't have an agent. Who's negotiating on his behalf? You have the issue of Steve Bisciotti and the Baltimore Ravens. Very soon after Deshaun Watson got his deal in Cleveland, came out and openly stated that he was not a fan of that, and the Ravens won't be doing that in terms of giving a player fully guaranteed money of that magnitude. So you got all this stuff going on. Then you have, as we always know, when it comes to these type of things, negotiations or back and forth between players and organizations for money, you have organizations trying to put out the narrative of why they're not willing to pay fully guaranteed money. Now, in fairness to the Ravens, Lamar Jackson has been injured and has not started and finished a game Excuse me, he has only started and finished one game in the months of December and January in the last 2 years. And we know that that is the most crucial time of the regular season for NFL teams, right? So we keep hearing now on the on the Lamar Jackson side, we hear, okay, this guy's a former MVP. He's done this, that, and the third. He wins 74% of his games in the regular season. All that is great and credit due for that. But here's the other part of it. Lamar Jackson only has one playoff win. Here's the other part of it. Lamar Jackson's numbers dip precipitously in the playoffs. Now, most players' numbers dip in the playoffs because teams really have that time to lock in on you and prepare for you. But if you're the Ravens, that's what you're saying. Like, Lamar, we love you. Lamar, you've been great. But now we've got the injury history. We only have one playoff win to show for the time that you've been with us. We have the injuries. So now you start wondering, right? And then on the Lamar Jackson side, we've heard people say, and many fans say, we've heard other football pundits say, what have the Ravens done to ensure that Lamar Jackson had quality weapons on the outside? Now, here's the thing. Did quality or big name wide receivers, free agents, etc., did they want to come and play in that run heavy system Greg Roman was running? Probably not. Was Baltimore willing to really open up the checkbook? We're not sure. So there's different things in place. Was Lamar Jackson as great a quarterback as he is in terms of how he can destroy you on the ground with his legs and he can throw it? We know that he's previously led the league in passing touchdowns. Now, a lot of that went to the tight end and a lot of that was schemed up. So now we wonder, is Lamar Jackson a guy who can really slice and dice from the pocket? Is he a guy who can throw receivers open? Is he, is he that guy? We really don't know. Not saying he can't throw the ball or that he can't be dangerous from the pocket, but we really don't know. But now the Ravens have gone ahead, they've spent some money, and they've gotten a big name target. Notice I said a big name target. They've got him a big name target for next season should he decide to play. And that target is Odell Beckham Jr. This is a guy who had one of the best 3-year starts to his career in NFL history. Odell was absolutely incredible for the first 3 years of his career with the New York Giants. We know about the incredible one-handed catch on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys that kind of vaulted him into superstardom. By the way, Odell is just the definition of diva receiver, isn't he? But anyway, this is a guy who had 4,122 receiving yards in his first 3 years, averaging over almost 1,400 receiving yards per season in those first 3 years. He averaged just about 12 receiving touchdowns. He averaged, I want to say 93, 94 yards per game in that, 96 receiving yards per game in that stretch. So that was one of the greatest openings to a career we've ever seen from a wide receiver. Now, we do have to take that with a grain of salt because we know in the NFL, the modern NFL, they're throwing the ball more than ever, but you cannot deny Odell Beckham Jr.'s talent. When he came into the league, he was Justin Jefferson. He was, what's my man's name from Cincinnati? He was, Joe Burrow's number one target. I can't remember his name. It slips me. But the point is, he was that guy when he came into the league. Now, OBJ has suffered injuries. He's had 2 ACLs in the past 3 years that he's recovered from or attempted to recover from. This is his 4th team since he's been in the league. So after pretty much asking out of New York with the Giants, he ends up getting traded to the Cleveland Browns, and he's decent there, but he just doesn't quite click with Baker Mayfield, so he doesn't have the dominating season that we knew about. Then he gets traded to the Rams en route to their Super Bowl championship, and he was very, very good alongside Cooper Kupp. And then he was on his way to arguably being the Super Bowl MVP before he blew his knee out again in that Super Bowl, which the Rams hung on to win. So, by the way, Jamar Chase, that's the name I was thinking about from Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's number one weapon, Jamar Chase. But anyway, Odell Beckham Jr. was that dude. He was Justin Jefferson. He was Jamar Chase coming into the league. And so now, obviously dependent on how healthy he is and what type of form he can get back to. And if it's anything, we saw what he could be with the Rams. So do we know what he's going to be with the Raiders? He's back. Oh, sorry, not the Raiders, the Ravens. So he's back. The Baltimore Ravens have signed him. He's going to make, he can make $18 million next year, but he's going to make about 15. Most of that 13 and change being a signing bonus, and then about 1.6 being his base salary. So if Lamar decides to come back and play for the Ravens, whether or not it's to play on the franchise tag or to give the Ravens time to work out a new deal, he's got a legitimate number one. And then he's got Rashad Bateman, who was a first-round draft pick at receiver. He still has Mark Andrews. He has a new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, who is going to run a legitimate pro-style offense, not necessarily a gimmicky running game like Greg Roman. Now, don't get me wrong, Greg Roman's gimmicky running game led to a great deal of success for Lamar, but now we're going to see how Lamar functions in a real pro-style offense. So here's the thing, though. Lamar Jackson and Odell Beckham Jr. partied in Miami after Odell announced that he'd be signing with the Ravens. So does that mean that Lamar was recruiting Odell? Maybe. He seemed pretty happy about it via his Instagram post afterwards. So they seem pretty happy about it. So does this increase the likelihood that Lamar is willing now to come back to the table or to play under that franchise tag in Baltimore? If you're a Ravens fan, you got to hope so. And now also, if he plays under the franchise tag, does he say, okay, I have a real legitimate number one receiver. I'm going to go ahead, get busy with him. And then there's going to be no way that you don't pay me after this season is over. All things to think about. So this is going to be very interesting. Lamar Jackson, hopefully Odell Beckham Jr. for sure with the Ravens next year. And we're going to see what it's going to be. Definitely Baltimore needed that number one elite weapon in the passing game. Again, they have Todd Monken, who's a legitimate pro-style offensive coordinator. And yeah, we're going to see what it is. So is Lamar Jackson going to come back? Is he going to suit up? Is he going to take the franchise tag? Is he going to look for a new deal? And what can the Ravens do at this point? Because it seems like they're extending every possible olive branch to get this guy in there and get him signed. So we'll see. So what I want to know from you, how do you think Odell Beckham Jr.'s presence affects Lamar Jackson? Do you think it brings him back to the table? Do you think it brings him back to sign for the franchise tag? Or does it make him more willing to take a long-term deal that's a little less money than he's looking for? All right. So leave your comments here in the comments section, and look forward to hearing from you. And I'll be back next time. And I'm out. Peace.